This is Heartrepreneur Radio, maximizing your personal and business results by leading with your heart. With your host, Terri Levine. Listen every week as Terri tackles the topics that will help you become a successful heart-centered entrepreneur. Be sure to read the blog posts at www.heartrepreneur.com/blog. Come back often and add this show to your favorite RSS feed or subscribe in iTunes. You can also follow Terri on Twitter at MentorTerri and on Facebook.com/Heartrepreneur Terri Levine. And now here's Terri.
Hello and welcome to Heartrepreneur Radio and TV with Terri Levine. I'm your co-host, Thelma Gallant, and I'm excited to be here today. You can connect with Terri, me, and other like-minded heart-based business owners in the Heartrepreneurs with Terri Levine Facebook group. So go check it out. And if you love this show, make sure you like it and give us those 5-star reviews. We always love them. Today's quote: "We keep moving forward, opening new doors, and doing new things because we're curious, and curiosity keeps leading us down new paths." Walt Disney. Today's show topic is Shatter the Suffering. Welcome in easy and fun. It's your time to shift. Our special guest this week is Ken Attard. Ken is a mindset consultant who has been successfully working with clients for more than 15 years. Ken works with entrepreneurs, helping them to adapt and pivot their business using his proprietary ARC method, allowing them to have more free time, guaranteed. 20 plus years as an entrepreneur, a father, and a human being like the rest of us, Ken understands that business and life are not meant to be a struggle and suffering. However, by shifting the way you think, it will take you to a place that can be easy and fun. Welcome to the show, Ken.
Hi, well, pleasure to be here. I'm really looking forward, super excited.
So, adapt and pivot, I know, is what you like to say. Let's adapt and pivot. And I know pivot is a big word.
Right.
But I love that you have combined it with the word adapt, because it's not just there's a
Absolutely.
process to it. And that's what I'm hearing. Tell me a little bit about why you chose adapt and pivot as for what you give your clients.
Adapt. Yeah, absolutely. So adapt and pivot. And you're right. You're spot on in saying that there is a process. So someone doesn't just, all of a sudden adapt and pivot, although we constantly have choices that we're making every single day in our business, in our life, even from simple choices as, what clothes am I going to wear this morning? Just simple things like this. And we're constantly making those decisions. Now, adapting and pivoting your business, what some entrepreneurs might be saying is that, I really don't want to adapt and pivot my business. And what I say is, it's not necessarily going to adapting and pivoting your business completely. The thing is, though, that changes do happen over the course of a period of time. And there are changes that can be substantial changes. Sometimes they can be small changes. And we need to adapt and pivot in a way that is going to be resourceful to our businesses. It's going to be resourceful to your business if you do have a business. So what's really interesting, though, is it's not a matter of the physical aspect as such to necessarily adapt and pivot. There are processes that could be changed. There are different ways of doing things. But for me, what's essential, and what I believe is essential for every single entrepreneur, there is no way that any entrepreneur can adapt and pivot unless they're actually going to have a shift with their mindset. And this is what's really key. For me, this is what is essential and is a key. And this is what I help people with, is to show them how they can actually adapt and pivot the way they're thinking. Because if you have a problem right now in your business, as Einstein had said, you can't solve that problem with the same mindset that created it. You need to go over and above. You need to get out of your mind, sort of, to be able to find the solution. Although sometimes we associate out of your mind with crazy, but you know what? Sometimes it's a really good thing, because that's how we can find new solutions to new problems or challenges that potentially you're having in your business.
Well, and some of the biggest shifts that we've had in our society, those people were actually thought of as crazy before they actually, and now it's just like this is the way it is, kind of thing.
I
So
mean, there was a
sometimes,
time when, yeah, sorry, there was a time, I mean, Galileo, said the world's not flat, but they thought he was crazy. Not
and then they
today.
found out exactly, and the Earth is the center of the center of the universe, but it was actually the sun that was the center of our particular
Exactly.
solar system. So, um, what kind of popped in my head while you were talking about that, um, was how if we do the same exercises for our body over and over and over again, our body actually gets used to it, and it
That's right.
stops gaining the benefits from exercise. And so what I'm hearing is that what you're offering is kind of like an exercise for the brain. If you keep with the same mindset, it stops losing its benefit. But as you shift into a newer mindset, again, you start growing and expanding again. You're not stuck where you were
Exactly.
before.
Yeah, very precise. And what is really important is this, is that I have found over the years that there are many entrepreneurs that actually don't realize that there is a thought process going on. So,
Okay.
so when I say a thought process, it's really important to understand that your thoughts are having a direct effect on the results and the experiences that you're having in your life. And interestingly enough, what you were saying about the body getting used to it, the body actually does get used to certain emotions. So what do I mean by that? So the thoughts create the emotions. But if every single day you are creating the same emotions, at some point, the body is going to get used to that as well, and is also going to react to that. So when I say create the same emotions, so what happens is you can potentially be triggered in a certain way or react in a certain way as soon as you find yourself in a similar situation that you've experienced in the past.
Mm-hmm.
And only because you've learned that way. So for instance, if someone's had a difficult situation in their business at one point in time and they need to make certain changes, and they're just so used to as soon as stuff goes a little bit different that they actually lose it, and they've learned to completely panic every single time that happens, the chances are that every time a situation arises that's different, that is a critical situation, let's say, there's a very good chance that they're going to panic and they're going to lose it again. Just like someone may have learned that every time they get angry, they need to yell. How does that happen? They've only learned that process, and they've learned that process as they could be from a very young age. It could potentially, remember, we're constantly being programmed. Our minds are being programmed from a very young age as we're growing up, from our parents, from our grandparents, from our teachers. This is why I always emphasize what a powerful position teachers are in, because they are essentially programming, or part of the process of programming, the children.
Mm-hmm.
So if as a parent, I'm telling my child that, you know what, you can accomplish whatever you set your mind to, you can achieve whatever you want to achieve, you can, and versus, you know what, you're good for nothing, you never do things right. And as we continue to, now, what is really important to understand, as adults, we're continuing to be bombarded with what we watch, what we listen to, what we read, and what we're seeing. And now, I mean, if you just take the simple case of, let's say, watching the news, for instance, where from me, for the most part, I've eliminated that completely out of my life and have for many, many, many years. But think about it, when someone is actually watching the news, not only are they listening nowadays, but there's probably another small picture in the corner with something going on. There's words along the bottom that they're constantly reading. And the amazing thing is this, is that a lot of times there's stuff that is actually bypassing the consciousness and going into the unconscious immediately. So you are actually learning and programming yourself. And if you are programming yourself with resourceful things, then that's fantastic. Absolutely brilliant. And this is part of the process that I love to teach entrepreneurs, is that they need to become aware of what's going on. When you're thinking, you are creating an emotion. The minute you think, you create an emotion. Now, is that emotion that you are creating a resourceful one or an unresourceful one? Depending on what you're thinking.
Well, and I think too, is the emotion that you're experiencing an automated one, or are you creating it? And I like what it reminds me of is, I think it's Joe Dispenza that says, when the body becomes the mind.
Exactly. And that's what I meant by the body actually learns so you're going through the motions every day. So sometimes I just tell someone, you know what, today, when you're going to work, if you're not working from home, if you're going to work, and even if you're working from home, for instance, change your process every so often. So when I say change the process, so if I'm heading out, so for the most part, I work remotely, so I usually work from a cafe or something like that. But I tend to go, because I've learned to go to the same place to work because it's comfortable. I know what to expect. I know the surroundings. The people there are used to me. Yet every so often I change it up and I say, today I'm going to take a different route to where I'm going. I might go to a different place. I might opt for something completely different, simply to experience something different. So I create new neural pathways in the brain. You see, the neural pathways that we create in the brain, the more often we do it, the stronger it becomes, the stronger the link. So as I was giving the example of someone getting angry, yelling when they get angry, they do that because the neural pathway that they've created is so strong. They've been learning that for so many years, for instance. So even in someone's business, they may have been doing something in a certain way. They've been doing it for years, and they just haven't taken the time to actually say, is there a way that we could potentially do this even better? It doesn't mean what you were doing wasn't working, but could you do it better? And you look at different options all of a sudden. Many times it's just a matter of looking at different options and saying, this is an option that has potential. This is an option, I don't need to look at it. I just don't like it. I completely eliminate it. This is an option that has potential as well. So now we have all different options. Let's start to look at different ways of doing things. Now, the thinking part and the mindset part, this is what I love about it so much is because it is it's directly related to the results and the experiences. So I said the thought creates the emotion. The emotion then, if it's a good emotion, if it's something that makes me feel good, and this is what I really want to emphasize with entrepreneurs, this is why it's Shatter the Suffering, because how often in the entrepreneurial world, when you listen to speakers, you listen to people who teach, and fantastic, and there's some great ones, yet so many of them tell us and instill in us that we have to make the sacrifices, that we have to suffer, that it has to be difficult, that you're not going to make a profit unless, it's going to take 5 years before you start to see your first profit. Now, I'm not saying that there aren't some, actually, you know what? I just don't believe this anymore. And the reason I don't believe it is because your beliefs, your thoughts are tied in with your beliefs. What is a thought? It is only a belief, a thought is only a belief. A belief is only a thought that you've been thinking over and over and over and over and over. We use the example of the child. The child has heard they can achieve, they can achieve, they can achieve, or you can't achieve, you can't. Now, if we're constantly hearing in the entrepreneurial world, you have to suffer. It's a constant battle. It's really difficult. It's hard. If you want to be an entrepreneur, not everyone can be an entrepreneur. I was listening to something the other day, not everybody should be prepared to be an entrepreneur because it's hard. You got to be prepared to be 2 weeks away from your family at times. And why? Is that absolutely necessary? Yes, there might be times when you will be dedicating a certain amount of time to your business. But you also need to look at your business in a holistic way as well. And the decisions that you are making, are they aligned with everything that you truly want?
Well, and the reality is what you're explaining is being part of an entrepreneur. There's a lot of people who experience that in their job. It is not specifically entrepreneurs that are like that. That's a mindset that can live anywhere.
And with the utmost, respect, like the intentions of every single teacher or people who are teaching is usually in the absolute right place. The thing is this, and this is what's so important about who you align with for your teaching as well, is understand that what they are teaching you is coming from their perspective. Just as I'm speaking here, it's coming from my perspective. You can take it on board and say, you know what, there's some interesting stuff here. I think I want to experiment with this a bit. This makes a bit of sense. Or you can say, you know what, I don't like it. And you push it away, you push it to the side and you say, no, I don't like this. Because it is affecting the way you are thinking is having that effect on the results that you want. What if within the first year of your business, you could turn around a decent profit? Is that possible? Have people done it? They have. So why can't that be you? This is essentially what I tell my clients. Why can't that be you? Who said that it has to take 5 years? Who decided?
Exactly.
So this is essential. The thing is, we do have, and I just want to touch on this. The thing is that we do have some unconscious programs running because that's how we've learned. And what's important, and part of the process that I need to take someone through, is they need to unlearn some of those beliefs that they've learned. Because, like I said, a belief is just a thought you've heard and listened to it and over and over and over until it becomes a belief.
So I'm just going to pause you right there because I want to make sure that our listeners know how to connect with you, because we've been providing a lot of information here about, wearing a new pathway through our brain. So I know with your ARC method that you actually support people with creating those new neural pathways through the work that you're doing. So how do our listeners connect with you?
Fantastic. So what they can do is they can go to adaptandpivotnow.com, where they can watch a free masterclass on the top 3 secrets preventing them from adapting and pivoting right now.
Perfect. And they can find you on social media and...
They can find me on social media as well. They can find me at Mindset Malta as well on Facebook. They can do that as well. Right?
Perfect.
So those are the best 2 options to find me, without a doubt.
Okay, awesome. So I heard a lot of juicy information in there. You were talking about, I got a couple of things that I want to ask you about.
It starts to raise a lot of questions, I know.
It does. It really does. So you talk about what we're feeding our mind, right? And I know, there's that saying out there that you are the average of the 5 people that you spend the most time with. And something that I've taken into consideration when I think about that is that I include who I listen to. I not just who I physically spend time with, but who I listen to spend time with, who I read spend time with, who I learn from spend time with. I include those as part of my, average of the people that I'm spending the most time with. Because I think that again, and what I'm also hearing too about changing it up just a bit. right? How many times does moving to a different cafe trigger a creative idea for you?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So for instance, I'm very fortunate in the sense that, like I said, I can work remotely, and there are days when when I'll just switch it completely. And it's funny because I might bump into someone who gives me an idea. I might bump into someone who gives me more business. So it literally does that. And as you said as well, which ties in with it, I can get new ideas as well when I go to these new places. And tied in with that is finding time to actually just, and I emphasize with this so much, is just to stay quiet with yourself. That's another thing. We've got so many distractions going on continually. Like, it's like, people have the TV going on in the background. Then there's the radio. Then we have internet going on. Then we have our mobile notifications going on. I've made it a point for myself, for instance, and I suggest people to attempt this and see what happens. Switch off all of your notifications on your mobile phone. Put them all on silent. Unless obviously you're waiting for some sort of like emergency message. But, how many emergency messages do we get in a day, really? Switch off all your notifications, because the notifications is another neural pathway that's been created. Most people don't realize that they've been programmed. As soon as they hear that ding, as soon as they hear that notification, oh, I got to see my mobile. That's just a neural pathway created.
It's the Pavlov dog bell.
On the part of, the people who have invented the mobile phone, invented all these programs. It's genius because you automatically go to it. So my suggestion would be, what if you created something that was similar to that made you laugh? I had a great mentor of mine once suggested, and she actually was doing it, and I was doing it for a while as well. You just set an alarm on your phone and you just have a quacking duck go off. So, every couple of hours you have a quacking duck off. It just sends off a trigger. You know what? In this instance, for me, it was, you know what? You don't really need to take life that seriously. Have a laugh.
That's good.
Laugh. So you just reminding, you're creating that pathway to understand that your life is like, although we're entrepreneurs and you're an entrepreneur, and our life, we spend quite a bit of time in our business, yet our life is not just our business. Mm-hmm. And this is what I truly want entrepreneurs to understand, is that when they start to really tap in to an energy, it's not about just taking action. This is the thing. We get taught to take action and constantly be going. It's not a matter of just always going. Sometimes it's really important to actually stop, to take the time to stop so you can re-energize yourself, so you can be inspired. There's a big difference between action and inspired action. Do you know anybody who's busy doing nothing?
I know a lot of people who are busy doing busy work.
But essentially, and they never have time. There's never time to just sit down and have a 15-minute chat with a friend, for instance, or just to have, whatever. There's never enough time. There's always got to be something going on. We got to be going here. We got to go. And what that does is, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're being more efficient. Mm-hmm. So a very simple example: if I have an inspired thought that leads me to make a phone call, which creates some business for me from that one phone call, because I had an inspired thought and I took an inspired action, it's a lot more efficient than phoning 100 people up to finally find that one person. Mm-hmm. So this is how effectively an entrepreneur can actually have more time, because as you become more inspired, your actions become more inspired. And then that means that you are going to be able to be more efficient, which means now you're going to have more time for whatever it is you really, truly want. I asked this question to entrepreneurs as well. Go ahead.
No, there's so much juicy stuff in here. So what I'm hearing is, one, asking myself, what is my mindset around my business? Getting really clear on where I'm at right now. What is my current mindset? am I in continuous busy mode and not listening to or listening for those inspired actions that you're speaking of? How can I change up my regularly scheduled day to bring in a little bit of inspiration and create opportunities and openings, create those pauses? Like, those are some
Yeah,
of the things that I'm hearing in what you're sharing.
absolutely. And like anything else, it's practice. It's practice, and it's just like you schedule a meeting. You schedule your quiet time. You make it a point. I make it a point every morning before I really get into my work and I start my work. I spend anywhere between half an hour and an hour. Could be listening to something that is going to be very resourceful for me, that I learn new. It could be meditation. It could be a short meditation. I love guided meditations.
Mm-hmm.
It could be, so it's scheduling like anything else. And another really important question to I believe to every entrepreneur needs to be asking themselves is when they started their business, why did you start your business? What was the idea? Now, for the most part, most entrepreneurs start their own business because they want to be their own boss. They want to make a certain amount of money that they think is what they deserve to make and what they really want to make, to live a certain lifestyle, so that they can truly have, ultimately it boils down, so that they can truly have the freedom that they want. Yet, they could potentially be finding themselves going down a rabbit hole where they're now working 16 hours, 17 hours a day, which is completely incongruent as to why, the reason they started. So now you need to go back and look at your values and what it is that you truly want to accomplish. And are the decisions that you are making in your life, in your business, are they aligned with the values that you said when you originally started off with? Now, some may have changed over time. That's okay. As long as the decisions that you're making are aligned with what you say your values are, you're okay. But what I've seen over time and time, like I said, I've met entrepreneurs who have told me, you know what, I wish I never expanded. Because all of a sudden with this expansion, they didn't think certain things through. And now their time is completely taken up. Now, it doesn't mean that expansion is not something that can be done. Absolutely. But if you expand and you haven't looked at, again, like I said, holistically, and when I mean holistically, how is it going to affect every single area of my life? When I'm making a decision, this is absolutely vital for any entrepreneur, anybody making a decision. I've decided I'm going to expand, for instance. Okay, so how is this going to affect my personal time? How is this going to affect my time with my family? How is this going to affect my health? How is this going to affect whatever it is that is important to you? How is this going to affect my social life? Right? So,
well, and it's important. I agree with you. It's important to be paying attention to those kinds of things and asking those questions so that you can make choices that are,
yeah,
like you say, in alignment with your values. I think too, even if I happen to make a choice that impacts one of those areas of my life that are important, it's still an opportunity. I can still come in and assess that situation later and go, okay, so what creative solutions can I find
absolutely.
that
And
will resolve this?
absolutely. And it could be that you say, you know what, for this short period of time, yes, I'm going to be spending a little less time with my family, for instance. This is, when we get into balance, a lot of people think that balance is, let's say there's about 5 particular areas of one's life that there are, sort of like an umbrella for everything. And people think that balance is having 20% of each. Balance is not like that. Balance, it moves. There may be a time where you're dedicating 70% of your time to your work and only, let's say, 20% of time to your family and 10% of your time to your health and whatever that you want to. But it's important because that's what's necessary for a certain amount of time.
Right.
But as long as you are aware of it and actually looking at it and saying, okay, I know that I have this month that is going to be, I need to be really dedicated towards this because I don't know, maybe I'm expanding, maybe I'm starting a new business, maybe whatever it may be. And that's okay. But you need to also look at long term and say, okay, but you know what? I can afford to do this for a month, but I can't go beyond a month because, I need to be taking care of my health. I need to be spending time with my family. I have a child. I want to take care of whatever the important values are to you, and everyone's different. It's not for me to decide what your values are. So even if I'm working with someone, I recognize what their values are without imposing my values. I can consult, obviously, and get them to look at the different options and look at the different areas so that then they can make a decision that is going to be best suitable for them.
Well, and what I'm hearing is that it's not that life is about ebbs and flows, right? And so if we're launching something, we might be putting a little bit extra in there with the awareness and choice that this is extra here now so that I have extra here later, kind of thing. And it also, one of the visuals that's coming up for me is a couple coming into a relationship and both being a contribution to it. That doesn't necessarily mean that I do half the vacuuming, you do half the vacuuming. It might mean I do the vacuuming, you do the cooking. And that's where the equity comes in.
And again, it's whatever works. And what we need to be very attentive of is this. I believe for me is this. So for instance, you mentioned the ebb and the flow, which is true. But underlying that, there's also a belief there that there are cycles. Yet if we're constantly moving upwards in the cycle, so our low is now not as low as it used to be. It's higher. And we need to be aware. It's important to be aware that, so the way I want to explain this is that a belief that, okay, if there's good times and if it's really good, then it has to become really bad. That's just a belief. It doesn't have to be.
Right.
It doesn't have to be good, bad, good, bad, good, bad. Yes, you will have challenges. We are human. There are challenges. We have them. But this is the part that's really interesting. And this is what I love to get people to, is to understand that when we can laugh, when we can have fun, even when you are going through your challenges, you will never be sad. You will always be content. You will just say that, listen, this is just a challenge. We're dealing with it right now. I can laugh at it. I'll probably be laughing at it in a couple of years anyways. So why not laugh now? Why wait? Might as well laugh now because, it happened, whatever it is. And you learn from it and you say, okay, because, and again, we can't get into too much detail here, but learning how to tap into that energy that's omnipotent, that you will never, and this is what I want entrepreneurs to get to the point where they can truly trust that everything is always working out and unfolding exactly the way it's meant to unfold. Even though sometimes you go, there have been times in my life where I went, man, why is this going on? This should not be happening, but it was. And now I look back and I go, it was preparing me for now. It was literally preparing me to be able to have the experience, to be able to share that experience. And that's all it was. So now when things crop up, I look at it and I go, okay, Ken, because ultimately we are all creating our own reality. It's a fact, and we're not going to get into a lot of detail here again, but we are creating that reality. So when something happens, I look at it and I go, okay, Ken, how have you brought this on? How have you brought this on? And I look at it and I look at myself and I say, okay, there's, whatever it may be, and I deal with it. And this is what entrepreneurs can do. They can learn to deal with this and essentially understand you can have fun while doing it. You can have fun.
Well, and being curious about it, right? Like I love that.
Curiosity is brilliant.
Because, well, I mean, you have, when you're speaking about energy and everything like that, energy will, it'll explode and it'll come back together as something else. And then it'll break apart and it'll come back as something else. And so the same thing kind of happens in our life. Life might explode, but it's still going to come back together as something else. And it's getting curious about what that could be.
And it's getting curious as to how can I shift this? Because if you essentially, the universe is extremely patient. So if you have not learned a lesson that you were meant to learn, and this is really interesting, because the minute you go, oh, I learned that lesson, yeah, the universe sort of like, okay, let's give you another opportunity. Let's see if you've actually really learned it.
Yep.
Right? So it gives you another opportunity to learn it, and because it's extremely patient. And the beautiful thing is this: it doesn't matter. Like, and all my entrepreneurs, people I work with, you're beautiful the way you are. You're perfect the way you are. There is nothing to fix. What we're looking at is just changing some behaviors. Who you are is beautiful. Who you are is beautiful. Who you are has nothing to do with your behaviors. Your behaviors can change. Who you are, the essence of who you are, it will never change, because the essence of who you are is love anyways. So the essence of who you are will never change. It's the behaviors that we start to shift and we start to change. And this is where I want to take entrepreneurs, so that they can go to a place where they can wake up in the morning and go, okay, this is another beautiful day. Whatever the tasks you need to carry out today, whatever it is in your life that's going on, it's going to be okay.
And how would your life be if you could come from that space of, I'm curious about my day, all is well, all the time?
And when you truly come from that, when you truly come from that place, your days, your life will transform. It has to transform, because you are oh man, there's so much stuff that I'd love to share. You are vibrating at a frequency. We all are vibrating at a certain frequency. It's up to you. You can choose you can choose, just like a radio station. You can tap into that radio station or not. You have to put the dial on a certain number to listen to the music of that radio station. And the same from some people love to tap into Complain FM. Some people love to tap in Abundance FM. Choice is always yours.
Perfect. And that's the perfect place for us to wrap this out, because it is about our choice and about our mindset and all of that. There's so much juicy information in here. Ken, I want to thank you so much for your time.
It's my pleasure.
For sharing your wisdom and your experience with us. Can you share again that website that our listeners can connect to you through?
Sure, absolutely. So it's adaptandpivotnow.com. And the and is AND. So it's adaptandpivotnow.com. Perfect.
Thanks again for sharing everything with us. And I'm looking forward to connecting with you more as we go through our experiences. And for our listeners, if you enjoyed what you heard today and want to learn more, head over to adaptandpivotnow.com and check out his masterclass. There's a lot of juicy information in there for you as well, so that you can continue on your journey. And I want to remind you too, to go to Facebook and look for Heartrepreneurs with Terri Levine, and you will be able to connect with Terri, myself, and Ken, because Ken is at Heartrepreneurs with Terri Levine. You'll be able to connect with him and learn more about and spend your time with a lot of Heartrepreneurs that will definitely impact your life. So thank you so much for joining us. I hope you enjoyed this. Please like our show and give us the 5-star reviews if that's what you're inspired to do. And we look forward to connecting you with our next show. Have a great day.
You've been listening to Heartrepreneur Radio, maximizing your personal and business results by leading with your heart with your host, Terri Levine. This show is produced every week for your enjoyment and education. To make sure you never miss a single show, add us to your favorite RSS feed or subscribe in iTunes. You can also read Terri's latest blog posts at www.heartrepreneur.com/blog or follow Terri on Twitter at MentorTerri and on Facebook.com/Heartrepreneur Terri Levine. Your questions and comments are always welcome and appreciated. Send them to Terri on either Facebook or Twitter. Thank you for listening.